Hello, and welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast, the show where we help you establish your author brand, increase the size of your audience, and sell more books. I'm Lindsay Baroker, and I'm here with Jeffrey Poole and Joe Lalo. And we're a little early this week because we're interviewing Mark Dawson, who's coming to us from the UK. Hello, Mark.
Hi guys, how you doing?
I'll just read you a little intro here, and then we'll ask you some questions. And he's going to tell us all about Facebook marketing because he's making piles of money through Facebook and with his books and through Facebook, and we want to figure out what he's doing. So just grab this off of Amazon. It says you've been featured in Forbes, the Financial Times, and across the BBC. Mark Dawson is the best-selling author of the John Milton, Beatrix Rose, Isabella Rose, and Soho Noir series. Maybe I pronounced those right, maybe not.
Pretty good.
Until recently, Mark has worked in the London film industry, but he now writes full-time. Hi, Mark. Could you tell us a little bit about your writing and kind of what led you to self-publishing?
Yeah, sure. So I started writing, I started writing a long, long time ago, but I started publishing around 99, 2000. I had a traditional deal with Macmillan, so a big, one of the big five over here in the UK. And it was pretty good. The experience was good, working with great people and everything like that. But it kind of soured a bit as soon as the book hit the shelf. So it was, to start with, it was on the wrong shelf. So it was, it was kind of hidden in the back of the store and down too low. So I'd go into the store and start rearranging them and putting them up into the correct shelves. And then the next day they'd be back in the, you know how it goes. So it was fun to a point, but I think towards the end of it, I kind of got a little bit disheartened by it, so I stopped writing for quite a long time. And then a friend of mine told me that he had just published a book on Kindle, so I looked at that. I didn't know much about Kindle at the time, so I had a look, and it seemed like a really good way to get books directly to readers, so I thought I'd give that a shot. So I wrote The Black Mile, which is the first of the Soho Noir books. It took a year to write. I thought did quite well, especially this was back in the days when free days meant more than they do these days, so I could rank quite highly coming off the back of a free run and all that kind of stuff. So I wrote a follow-up. I made all kinds of mistakes. No mailing list in those days, no kind of platform, no series, nothing. It was just a complete mess. But I started to get a few readers, and I started getting emails from people saying, what are you doing next? So I started writing the John Milton series in June, I'm going to say April, May or June 2013. And then through 2013 and 2014, I wrote, 7 or 8 novels in that series and 2 novellas. Did a spin-off series with a character called Beatrix Rose, with three novels with her. And every book that I released did better and better and better. And I went from, in January 2014, making about the same as I was making my day job. And it was a day job that I liked. It wasn't one that I was desperate to get out of. It was a fun job. And then towards the end of the year, it was just I was going crazy. So it was every new book I released did better and better, got more readers. They launched higher. They were stickier. All that kind of stuff. And so I quit on 20th of November last year, and I've been full time ever since. And kind of thank my lucky stars every day because it's totally amazing.
All right, congratulations. It sounds like you kind of had some great success before you even got into the Facebook advertising. What kind of made you decide to give that a try?
Yeah, it was going really well. I only started really getting into Facebook properly towards the back end of last year, and that was probably after I was doing well enough to leave work. So I think remembering back, the reason I started to do it was because I was in KU version 1. Back when they launched it, and I got the Kindle All Stars bonus for the first 4 or 5 months, which I thought was quite nice. And then in December they featured me on .com as the author of the month, which was great, good publicity and everything like that. But that was from that point onwards. I think that's when a lot of the smaller books, and I say books, I'm being charitable, kind of pamphlets, started to appear, and it made it much more difficult to compete with them, and I didn't get the bonus anymore, and I started to drop down the rankings a bit. So I thought what I'd try and do is to try and advertise a bit and send traffic to my Kindle Unlimited books, with the intention that I might get borrows, it might push me back up again into the top rank. And I tried that, and it didn't work at all. It was a complete bust. Much too expensive. The clicks were too expensive. I wasn't making enough in terms of the royalty and the borrow to cover the cover the cost of the advertising. But I'd seen enough in the testing that I was doing to make me think that this was something that could have a lot of potential for authors. So moving into like January, I started to focus more on building mailing lists because I've always been big on list. I know you guys are big on proponents of that, and it's great advice. So I concentrated on advertising my starter library. So I give away 4 novels, or 2 novels, 2 novellas to people who sign up, and I started to advertise this on Facebook, targeting the ads to the fans of readers who were in my genre, so people like Lee Child and Baldacci and James Patterson, people like that. And I immediately that was immediately very successful. So in about 6 weeks, I'm going to pluck the figures out there a little bit here, and for a cost of about $2,000, I added something like 6,000 subscribers. So it was a real, there's definitely potential here. So I kept doing that, and then I thought, well, why don't I try and sell some books again? And the problem I had with the KU books was that they were every time I had a borrow or a sale, I was getting like $150, and that's nowhere near enough for most authors in terms of covering the cost of the advertising. So I thought I'll try something that's a bit more expensive and that has a bit more perceived value to people that I'm advertising to, rather than just the one book. So I started advertising a $6.99 box set of the first 3 Milton books plus a novella, and it's been amazing. So in the early days, I was getting a return on investment of 350%. So spend 1, get 3.5 back. And as time's gone on, that has, and as other authors have moved into the space now, a lot of that, weirdly enough, is because I've taught them how to do it. The clicks have become a bit more expensive, but I'm still returning between 50 and 100% return every day. It's really, really powerful, and I don't see any indication at the moment that it's going to be any less powerful. It's the most powerful thing I've done short of BookBub, and you can do this. These are like BookBubs you can do every day.
Awesome, and I'm going to ask you more about it because I've listened to some of your other interviews, and I think I know more what you're doing. But the guys have some kind of introduction to Facebook questions that people may be wondering about, and I want to let them do that first. But, yeah, and just to be clear, you're advertising on Facebook to go to your landing page and sign up for your mailing list, and then you advertise the box set?
I've got 2 objectives. So at the moment, I'm running a campaign with Russell Blake. So the 2 of us give away. He gives away the first Jet book. I give away the first Milton book, and that's in exchange for people signing up via a landing page. And then there's the sales advertising that sends traffic to Amazon, and directly to Amazon where customers can make purchases.
All right, because I'm going to try this myself, so I'm definitely going to come back and pump you for some more information. But let me hand you to the guys and just to ask some basic questions.
Cool.
Yep. All right. Now, Facebook advertising, because Facebook is sort of so crucial to most author platforms, I think most indie authors have tried Facebook advertising and not really gotten much out of it. Mm-hmm. Do you think that Facebook advertising is a good primary method for advertising, or is it sort of better to pair it with other things?
I think that you should take a holistic approach to advertising generally. So you've got you could call your mailing list as a form of advertising. You could look at Twitter, other social media platforms, BookBub, FreeBooksy, all those kinds of things they're not mutually exclusive, and they can be crafted together to make a campaign that just advances your career in a general sense. But I mean, Facebook is the most powerful and most useful platform that I'm using at the moment. I mean, BookBub will still beat it in terms of the amount of downloads you can get on the day of a BookBub deal by miles. But the problem with BookBub, or not the problem, just the fact of it, is you can't have more than 1 a month, and that's assuming you get accepted every month you apply, and they are competitive to get into these days. But with Facebook, you can continue to advertise daily, day on day, and continue to either sell books or get subscribers, and then you can sell books. So I think it's for me it's the main plank of my advertising strategy now, but it's complemented by other things.
Okay, broadly speaking, I think that it's always a good idea to have multiple methods going simultaneously. So it's good to know that I was sort of on target with that. All right. Is it useful to cultivate a large Facebook following, or can you make up for small follower and friend counts by structuring your advertising correctly?
I would say don't bother with a big following is just vanity. It's useful if you it's a useful side effect of the advertising. You will build that because every ad these days comes with a like button as well. But I mean, 2 years ago, maybe less than that, people were advertising specifically to get likes, and that is a complete waste of time now because that's almost the worst advice you could give. I don't know if you saw, there was an article in Digital Book World a couple of weeks ago, which was basically saying Facebook advertising doesn't work. I've got all these likes, I can't get through to any of them, which is absolutely true. But that advice is so out of date. I rebutted it the week after that with no, this is how you do Facebook advertising. So the problem with that is you can advertise and get 5,000 likes, and that's assuming that all of those likes are people and not bots or click farms. But once you've got those 5,000 likes, Facebook went from a kind of a free platform to a pay-to-play platform a couple of years ago. So you now have to pay to get your message across to them. So you're paying twice, once to acquire them and then once to reach them. So it doesn't make any sense at all these days to do that. You should definitely have a page where you can gather people who like you. And I think I've got 7,500 or so fans on that Facebook page now. But I'd never advertise to do that. You want to be advertising for real useful objectives. So getting someone on your mailing list where you can reach them without any further cost, well, apart from MailChimp or Aweber fees, or selling books directly. Those are the only objectives that I'd recommend.
Yeah, we've heard that from other people too. That having, particularly getting likes as a result of advertising, basically just clutters up your like count, and then any advertising you do, any posts you do that aren't ads, are going to get to fewer people who care about them because there's more people who don't care about them who like your stuff, and it's all a percentage game.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it was also heartening to know that you don't have to have a gigantic following in order to actually get good results out of Facebook advertising, because I'm sure that was scaring a lot of people away.
You don't need any following. So I mean, I consult for some traditional publishers now on a number of things that they move into the indie space, and one of them is they're interested in advertising, Facebook ads. So we've started some fan pages with literally no likes. They're completely fresh, and you don't need any fans to. In order to advertise, you just need a profile, a fan page, and a credit card. That's all you need. And you send those ads out, and if I sent ads to people who like George R.R. Martin, they probably won't even look back at my page. They'll just see the ad and they'll decide to either act on it or not act on it. And the fact that I've got 0 followers on that page won't factor into their decision at all.
Yeah, that's excellent. So let me ask you this. Is it more important to advertise consistently, or should you be focusing on major campaigns around price promotions or book releases?
That's up to the author. I mean, I publish, I advertise all the time. So I spend, at the moment, about $600 a day on ads for subscriptions and for sales. You don't have to spend that much, for sure, but and the main metric to bear in mind is, are you making a return on that investment? So that's the only thing that really matters. But so that's kind of blanket noise or background all the time. And then if I've got a launch, so I launched a book called Headhunters about a month ago, and I implemented a fairly significant Facebook campaign to bolster my mailing list campaign. So I think I've got about 25,000 on the mailing list now. So that was, and the way it's segmented means I could launch quite successfully to a fairly high point. What you can do with Facebook is you can take those people on your list and you can import them, pull them out as an XLS, import them into Facebook, and then create what's called a custom audience, and then you can serve ads just to them and to nobody else. So if you think about all the best advertising there's a whole theory about 7 touches of advertising. So if you see something once, it might not register, but if you see it more than once, each time you see it more than once makes it more likely you'll act on it. So what I do is they get an email, open rate might be 50 or 60%, and I can catch the other 40% with the Facebook ad, or the 60% who've opened it will see that message for a second time, and maybe this time they'll buy, whereas before when they're opening their email, maybe they were stopped at a red light or on the tube or something like that. So you can definitely factor those kinds of things in.
All right, and the amount that you just gave sort of falls into my last question, which is about how much money do you think an indie author should devote to Facebook advertising? I had on a monthly basis, but daily basis is even more interesting.
Whatever they can afford. I mean, and it's not an easy button. So people should definitely not take any of this advice away and think that I'm just going to spend $50 and get $100 back, because it probably won't work like that. And in the early days, there's a lot of experimentation, a lot of trial and errors. You get your targeting right, and you get your ad copy and your image right. So you have to expect to, you've got to spend a bit to optimize all that kind of stuff. But once you've done that, I mean, you can advertise. I've got students who started off with $5 a day or $10 a day, and then maybe they'd make $15 with that $10, and they'd reinvest that $5, and then spend $15, and then make $30, and then make, and then just gradually ratchet it up. And some of them now, I mean, I've got one author called Sella who writes kind of on the steamier side of the spectrum. And she had a box set that she was selling for. She earned about $2,500 to $3,000 a month before she started advertising, and she started reasonably low down in terms of how much she was spending. But after 4 or 5 weeks of building up, she made $18,000 or $19,000. So the kind of the increase was quite rapid, but it didn't involve a massive spend right at the start. It was gradual.
All right, that's good to know. And I should say, I'm sort of at my end of my questions, but I got an extra one for you. We talk about return on investment. How would you recommend that somebody sort of track is it just sort of an overall improvement in sales, or are you doing actual sort of analytics on click-throughs and whatnot?
You can do it in a number of ways. I mean, you could take one easy way to do it would be to see a baseline of sales before you start to advertise, and then take the fairly broad assumption that anything above that is going to be attributed to the sales. What that doesn't take into account is one of the nice benefits of advertising and selling more books is that your rank will rise, your books become more visible, and you get an organic boost at the same time. So the best way to do it, and this is not difficult, or it doesn't take much in the way of analyzing to monitor this, is just use affiliate tracking links. So Amazon has an affiliate scheme. You can use individual tracking IDs with each ad, and then you can specifically see at a very granular level which sale was attributed to which ad. And that means you can rank the ads, you can see which ones are performing, which ones aren't performing, switch the bad ones off, try and improve them, all that kind of stuff. Plus, on another benefit, you'll get a commission on your own books. So if you sell a book, instead of 70%, Amazon gives you another 7 to 8% on top, gets you up towards 80%. And then if that person buys anything on the entire store an hour after using 24 hours after using your link, you get a percentage of that as well. So I've had people going in and buy $1,000 watches after buying my $6.99 box set, and Amazon gives me another $80 just for giggles, really. It's entertaining.
Yeah, there was a guy I'd worked with who also writes for Wirecutter, and so he does recommendations, and therefore he's got a lot of people who click through on his stuff and then buy 47-inch TVs. So it works out well for him.
That's pretty nice.
All right, well that's it for me. So I'm going to hand you off to Jeff now for a few more questions.
Sure.
Alrighty, my original first question was going to be, what can a typical author expect to pay when creating a Facebook ad for the first time? I'm going to revamp that a little bit to say, would you say a first-time Facebook Facebook author that wants to advertise, should they plan on just a one-time thing, or would you recommend they pretty much start up like a strategy of some sort?
Yeah, I think you need to, in order to see if an ad is going to work effectively, and then to be able to scale it, you need to have a little bit of a budget that you're prepared to invest. So, I'd say 7 days is more than enough time to see whether an ad is going to work or not. And you could spend $5 a day to test that. So as long as you've got 30 or 40 bucks that you're prepared to invest over the course of a week, that's enough to get an idea as to whether that particular ad is going to be one that you think is worth a bit more attention and a bit more development. You don't need a huge budget for that.
Okay. Now, I've noticed you typically will post something on your own Facebook page about once a day, and I definitely like the fact that you don't try to push your books every time you post, because I know quite a few people that every time they write something, hey, it's on sale, or go click on here, or spread the word, or sort of thing there. So my question is, do you feel you get a better response from your fans if you simply just try to engage them in a normal conversation versus constantly trying to increase the number of your readers?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't. When people are on my page, I don't. Very rarely will I say, look, buy the book. Very, very rarely. Perhaps when I've got a new release, I'll do like a cover reveal. I'll do Maybe I'll read something out. I'll talk about it a bit. But and then when the book goes live, I'll change the banner. I'll pin a post at the top saying "Book's live now." But that will be the extent of it. I'm not one of these authors he's always shouting that, buy my book, because people don't hear that these days. There's so much of that. It's just noise. It's much more sensible. One of the things I would say that really stood me in good stead last year, and Facebook is a part of it, but it's just a general mindset, is treat any communication you get from a reader. I reply to everything, and it's getting to the point now where that's getting to be a bit difficult for me because I get quite a lot, which is massively gratifying, but it's also a bit of a time sink. But the benefit of that is you're turning people who perhaps at the start are just customers, then they become readers, then you make them into fans, then you make them into friends, and when you get up to that kind of level of engagement, you don't need to sell too hard. You just say, well, I've got a book out, and if they like your stuff, that's all they need. They'll go and buy it. So there's that whole 10,000 or 1,000 true fans theory, that if you can get that many people who will identify with your books or your art or whatever it is, that's enough to sustain a career as a creative artist, and that's been something I've really pushed hard the last year or two.
Now, I know a lot of the pricing for Facebook ads pertains to the number of people you've friended or you've added as friends, whatnot. So, do you actively pursue new friends on Facebook? I mean, do you include like a suggestion in like an author's note that says, hey, go ahead and friend me on Facebook and get like a free book or something or other?
I do, but that's the pricing of ads has nothing to do with the size of your platform. That's a different issue. I'll definitely include those kinds of links because it's good to build the platform up. But that's with boosted posts. Boosted post is I wouldn't recommend that. It's very tempting to use the boosting facility because it's easy. A couple of clicks and you can send that post, broadcast it more widely to your fans. But the advertising that I do does not advertise to my people on my page. It's advertising to people who've never heard of me before. So it will be, for me, it's people who've indicated that they like Lee Child by liking his page. So I'm advertising to people on Lee Child's, people who've liked his page, or to other authors in my genre. Or another really effective way right now is you remember I said earlier, you can take your mailing list and import that as a custom audience. One of the coolest things that Facebook does is, say you've got 100 people on your mailing list, you import that into Facebook as a custom audience, and then you tell Facebook you want to generate what they call a lookalike audience. So what Facebook does, it looks at the 100 people you've imported. It will work out how many of those people have got Facebook profiles, so maybe 70 or 80, and then it will try and identify data points in all of those 70 or 80 people, and it will create a mirror audience of people who it thinks will share those proclivities or those likes. And instead of having 100 or 80 people as an audience, you can generate 2 to 5 to 6 million people, and then you can advertise to them. And those are the kinds of audiences that I get the most return from these days. And that's nothing to do with the people on my page. That's kind of a separate issue.
So that's Facebook pretty much going, okay, well, we're looking at your list of users here. Looks like they all have these types of likes in common. They have this in common, this in common. We can expand that and say, oh, look at all these other people that there's a good chance they might actually, like your type of stuff there, so we'll include them. I didn't know they did that, so that is really cool.
It's very, very, very cool. Yeah.
Would you recommend Facebook advertising for authors new to the game who want to try out advertising for the first time, or would you suggest something else first?
I think mailing list is the first thing you have to get that nailed down right away. I was very slow in getting a mailing list, and
me too.
Yeah, it's easy. But it's very easy to do. That's the thing. It's so easy to set up a MailChimp account. It takes 5 minutes, and it's free, obviously, for the first 2,000. So I said that's the most important thing. And then if you've got one book, provided you philosophically don't have a problem with giving it away, and I've spoken at conferences before and said, look, a great piece of advice is to give the first thing away. It could be a novel, a novella, whatever. Provided you're prepared to do that as a reader magnet to get people to come onto your list, then I would say Facebook ads are worth looking into, because that's a really good way to deliver that message that you've got something free to give away. So, going back to that example of the consulting stuff I'm doing at the moment, we've got, I can't really say who it is, but there's a very famous English author from the 50s and 60s who's kind of a contemporary of Graham Greene, and a really, really respected author. and we're giving away a couple of his books just to try and build our list up, because at the moment we've got like 160 people on the list, and I want to get it up to 1,000, because that opens up other avenues that I can use, things like advanced teams. I can generate, obviously, the more people, more data points you've got for Facebook, the more accurate their mirror is going to be. So, 1,000 people is going to be more accurate than 100 people. So we're using these classic novels, and we're giving these away, and prepared to forego perhaps $6 or $7, $8 worth of income, because it's a long-term game, and we've got 8 or 9 books down the track that we think we can market once we've got people on our mailing list.
Very cool. Yeah, that's something I wish I would have started when I first started publishing my books too, was the mailing list, and I only fairly recently got into it, and I took the advice that many of our authors that we interview say is, if you want to get people to sign up, give them something for free. I'm like, yeah, all right, what the hell, why not? And man, it worked. As soon as I started offering a free story or a short story, the amount of subscribers tripled easily.
Yeah.
Like, it works out well.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Alrighty, well, that's it for my questions. Let me hand you on over to Lindsay, and I know she's got some questions for you.
Sure.
All right. Well, I was really excited to hear about the custom audience via the mailing list. I've never noticed that when I was poking around in there, so definitely going to give that a try.
Yeah, it's one of the best things for me right now. Interest targeting is the basic level. It's very powerful. But one thing I noticed, a lot of the people who took the course the first time were kind of thriller writers, and they all decided to target Lee Child's fans. And so because of that, I was finding that a click that cost me 15 cents when at the start of the year probably cost me 55 or 60 cents now. So it's much more competitive. But these big lookalikes, man, they are just amazing. And really, you can dig into all kinds of cool stuff. Like you can tell Facebook which platforms you want them to serve the ads to. So you can choose mobile or desktop, or the right-hand side desktop ads. Don't do those; they're useless. But mobile or desktop. And so I bought the Kool-Aid for a while that suggested that you send them to mobile because they're cheaper clicks. And it was only when I dug into how those clicks were behaving, and it isn't difficult to do this using the affiliate tracking. It turned out that the conversion on mobile ads, by which I mean the number of sales divided by the number of visits, was like 3 or 4%. But people on desktop only were converting at like 20 or 25%. So what was happening was the mobile was dragging down my profit. So I switched those off. And I'm running some ads in the UK at the moment just to desktop, and they're returning 300 to 350% every day. It's really just very interesting that people seem to be more prepared to buy stuff on their desktops rather than their phones right now.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, where you're like going into buying mode. You're going to go surf on Amazon, and maybe that's, you're just kind of randomly clicking things and checking things out while you're standing in line or something while you're in the phone. So maybe not as an audience in buying mode so much.
Yeah, it's interesting because I tried to think, well, how do I buy stuff? And I do buy stuff on my phone all the time, but I'm probably not my typical reader, because I do a survey every year of my readers, and they tend to skew towards they're older, so 50 and up typically, and I just think that they're more comfortable buying on a platform that they've been more used to over time. It's probably completely different if you're writing YA you're advertising to younger people who are probably very, very comfortable with buying on their phone. But that's just one of those things that you dig into when you're optimizing the ads and making them more effective.
Right, and I know you do this course, and we'll ask you about it at the end. So you probably have some science fiction and fantasy people in there. I wonder if that group too would be more inclined to be technically, more comfortable with their phone and shopping on iPads and such.
Yeah, very, very likely. I haven't dug into it in quite that much detail. We do have some sci-fi authors, some quite big ones. I probably shouldn't mention without asking if they minded, but we do have some bestsellers in the group, and they're doing pretty well.
All right, well, I'm going to be checking that out pretty soon. Now, for our audience who's only tried the boosted posts, could you I don't know it's hard without the screen in front of you, but could you kind of walk through setting up your first campaign on Facebook?
I can do better than that. I'm going to go into sales pitch mode now, so apologies for that. But,
okay, go ahead.
There are 3 free videos, of course, in exchange for a sign up to the mailing list for the course. But what I didn't want to do was create stuff that kind of got you halfway there and then kind of went, but if you want the good stuff, then you need to buy the course. So there are 3 videos about an hour in length that will take you through every single step you need to do in order to set up a mailing list campaign. So to use Facebook ads to build your list. So it covers things like it explains how ads are constructed. It goes through the Power Editor, which is the interface I recommend, with a screen flow. So with me basically over my shoulder, with me narrating what I'm doing and telling people these are the buttons you need to click in this order. And then talking about landing pages and ways to improve your conversion. So you can bring in more of those clicks and turn them into subscribers. So those videos are all for free, and I think we've had about 5,000 downloads or people signing up since we started doing the course. And there's one guy called John Logston who writes kind of Terry Pratchett style comedy, fantasy, and sci-fi, and he's amazing. And he said when he started in the course, he had 27 people on his mailing list, and he said it had taken 2 years to get that, and most of them were friends or family. So I know exactly where he was coming from, because I was just the same. And he went through the free stuff, and I think at a cost of about $700, he added 3,000 subscribers, and then he built an advanced team, and then he was able to launch his next book more successfully, and all that kind of stuff. So that's a long way of saying the best way to find out how to do that is just to check those videos out. But okay. I can give you a very quick run through. Things like don't boost, use the Power Editor. So that's a Chrome plugin. You need to be running Chrome. Download the Power Editor. What else would you need to know? As your Facebook ads are crafted in kind of a tiered system of campaign, ad set, and ad. Campaign for a mailing list sign-up campaign, you need to put you'd be driving clicks to website would be your objective. And then when you're targeting, the easiest thing to do is just to look at other authors in your genre and target their fans. So if you're not sure who your fans are also buying, then go to your book page and see what the also boughts are saying, and then do some research and find out if they've got good Facebook presences, and then you can start to market to those guys. And that's pretty much enough to get going.
Okay, and what's the address for the videos?
It's selfpublishingformula.com.
Okay, typing that in here, selfpublishingformula.com, just so I can put it in the show notes and make sure people can get it later. All right, do you have any suggestions for people who are writing in kind of a small niche where maybe there's not a big name like Lee Child? Like I do science fiction romance with my pen name, and that like the big 5 don't even really touch that because it's not, it's a really small little niche.
Well, I mean, Facebook's got 1.5 billion people on it, so even the smallest niches will have your fans will be there somewhere. And you're right. The problem is sometimes those authors won't have presences or presences that are too small to be registered by Facebook's algorithms. So in that situation, what I'd recommend is building up your mailing list to a large enough level that you can get a decent lookalike audience generated. And then just try that. So get to 200, 250 people on your list, and then export that to Facebook. Ask it to create a lookalike, and then start advertising to those people. And then you're hoping that it's picking out things like that they all like e-readers as a kind of a broad-based filter, and they like they're clicking on the same kinds of pages. They're liking the same kinds of authors, even if those authors don't have big presences. And then you just see how it goes. But there are people we've had people with really writing in very, very obscure niches who are doing reasonably well with ads.
All right. And do you target anything else besides like the author name? Do you go by demographics and female readers or certain age groups or anything?
Yeah, I don't split by gender because I think my audiences tend to split 75-25 male to female, but they do skew towards the older end of the spectrum. So I'll typically say 35 and up. I don't advertise much below that because I don't get too many conversions with the younger folk. But there are other things you can set as filters. So things like behaviors. You can determine whether they've indicated a willingness to use technology. They're early adopters. I think in the States you've got even more options than we do in the UK. So I think Kindle is one of them. So you could, as a base level, filter. Do they like the Kindle? And then if they like the Kindle, then you can add another level of filtering to that and say they like the Kindle and they like author X or author Y. and they're female between the ages of 45 and 55, or whatever. And you can get down, you can start to drill down to a really really narrow base when you start stacking those filters on top of each other.
All right. And do you find that it sounds like you've experimented both with trying to get them on your mailing list and then also directly selling on Amazon through the affiliate link? Is there one that you just found is easier or more profitable, or any thoughts on that?
It's easier to get immediate success with a mailing list campaign because you're not selling anything. It's something you're giving something away. So there's always going to be less friction, and people are more likely to click those kinds of campaigns. But in terms of the profitability, a mailing list campaign is a medium-term play. You're not immediately going to make a lot of money back. Although a good tip that's worth trying on that is with programs like MailChimp, instead of the MailChimp hosted thank you page, you can redirect to a page that you host and you can create yourself. And something that's worked really well for me is you get them to subscribe, and then the thank you page is a chance for you to basically do a kind of a McDonald's "do you want fries with that" offer. So I have 2 box sets, so I know that they're interested enough to download the 2 of the first Milton books, and I'll say, look, you've got the 2 books; they'll be delivered immediately. Check your email. But if you're interested, you can get a special offer on the 2 box sets, and I probably only get 3 or 4 sales of those a day, but that might be $20 or $25, and that sometimes means I'm actually getting paid to add subscribers. Not often, but occasionally, maybe 1 or 2 days out of 7, I'll make more money than I've spent on the cost of acquiring the subscriber, which is pretty cool. So I've got the benefit of subscribers, and I've got $10 or something like that. That's worth experimenting with.
Yeah, I've played a little bit with trying to sell directly on Amazon or on iTunes, which I actually found easier because you could target the Apple computers, iOSs specifically with Facebook. But I can see where if you got them on your page, then you could give them the links to Barnes & Noble and Amazon and everything that might be applicable to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it works.
And do you find that, I don't know, do you have an average, like amongst your group there, that how many clicks they have to pay for in order to get a mailing list sign up and get the free books? Or
Yeah, I mean, in terms of a good average for a cost per click for a mailing list sign up would be a very, very good average would be about 15 cents per click. So that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the cost of the subscriber, because you'll never get 100% conversion. So if you could hit, say, 40 to 50% conversion, which is aggressive, but it's doable, you're probably looking at adding subscribers at 35 cents maybe. I think anything south of 50 cents is doing pretty well to get a subscriber. And I mean, I spent much too much time, and I'm much too geeky, but I worked out what I think each subscriber is worth to me, and that's looking at things like click-through rates on campaigns and other kind of metrics that I'm able to work out. And so I've got an idea in my mind of what each subscriber is worth, and provided the cost of acquiring them is less than that, then I'll continue to advertise and bring them in.
And do you let Facebook recommend like what the bid should be, or do you try to, whenever I've tried to put something in, I hardly get any views, or if I try to go lower than what they recommend?
Yeah, definitely don't. I've never recommended that. The best one to go for is optimized CPM, so they call it OCPM, which basically means that you basically leave the bidding to Facebook. You can set the budget, so they're not gonna. If people are worried that Facebook is suddenly going to land them with a $500 bill for a day's worth of advertising, that won't happen, because you can set a maximum daily budget. So if you go for $5, you will spend $5, because Facebook doesn't leave money on the table, but it won't go above $5. But what Facebook will try and do is, if you go to optimize your campaign, it will serve your ads to people it thinks are most likely to do the thing that you want them to do. So if you're optimizing for clicks, it will say you've got an audience of 2 million. It will serve the ads to people in that 2 million who it thinks will, based on past behavior, will click on an ad, or you can serve the ads so they're optimized for people who'll register on a fan page or take an action or that kind of stuff. And that tends to be, in my experience, the most cost-effective way of getting Facebook to advertise for you.
Okay, great. And once you have them on your mailing list and you've given them their free books, do you then wait like a week or 2 weeks to try to get them to get the 4th book in the series or whatever's next?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I give away 4 books, so they'll get the first one. I think the first 2 actually when they actually subscribe, so those immediately fire. Then the next one will come a week after that. The next one will come a week after that, and then maybe a couple of weeks later, I'll offer them. I'll say, look, you've got the 2 books in the first 2 books in the Milton series. Would you like the box set? And here it is. It's $6.99. You still make a saving, even though you've got the first 2 books. It's still cheaper to buy the box set than it is to buy the buy the books individually, and that works pretty well. I'm generating income most of the time with those kinds of campaigns, and of course once you've got them on your list, then when you've got a launch, then there's you're gonna sell more books probably.
Okay, do you have any thoughts on, is it better to kind of give away, like if you, well, selfishly using myself as an example, I have 2 different series where I have the box sets, books 1 through 3, and I was thinking, should I make 2 different lists, or should I just give all 6 books away day 1, or would you stagger it? What do you think?
I would, as a kind of a general level, I'd create 2 lists for that. I mean, especially if the box sets are slightly different genres. Are they?
They're pretty similar. They're both high fantasy / steampunk, so.
Okay, probably you wouldn't need to do that, but I wouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't give away 2 box sets. I'd give away, if it were me, I'd probably give away maybe the first novel in each, and actually, I probably would have 2 mailing lists for that. I'd give away the first one in series 1, and then I'd offer them books 2, 3, 4, whatever, knowing that they've downloaded and possibly read that first book, and then I'd do it for the second box set as well. And then at the end of that process, then you'd import them, you take them and put them into another list, a kind of a main mailing list. But I think for the early month or 5 or 6 weeks, it makes sense to keep them separate.
All right, and I guess we didn't ask, but I assume that you kind of have a different list for the people who sign up from the back of your books versus these Facebook leads.
I've got about 26 different lists.
Is that all?
Yeah. And I was slow doing that, but it does make sense. Every single book has its own list, because I want to know that if they buy Sword of God as the 5th Milton book, it's useful for me to know that first of all they've bought the 5th one, so I can then market them the 6th one. And it's also useful for me to know that they've bought Milton, so I can then market them the Beatrix Rose books, which are similar. I know there's good crossover there. I also I'll have a different list for Facebook subscriptions. What else? I'm running some Twitter campaigns at the moment, so they'll come into a separate list, because all these people will behave differently. And if people are tempted, I would never recommend this, and I think contests are a complete waste of time. But if you're going to do one, and you give away, don't give away an iPad, because everyone wants an iPad. You want to give away something that is connected to books, and specifically your books. But even with that, I'd still fight quite shy of that kind of campaign, because you're just going to get people who want something free, and they're probably not going to be prepared to, well, some of them won't be prepared to buy something. But if after that dire warning you're still prepared to do a contest, then definitely quarantine the people who come in, because you don't want to put them into your main mailing list, because if when you send out the kind of usual broadcast emails, they'll go, I didn't sign up for this, and they'll all unsubscribe, or they'll all click abuse, and before you know it, your MailChimp account has been shut down. So always tread. I mean, I made mistakes with that when I was getting started. So I'd always be careful with that these days.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard anybody say it's actually tried giving away an iPad or something that ended up being a good idea.
No, bad idea. I mean, even Kindles. I've done that before. Kindles loaded with my books, and you still get people who just want a Kindle, which is good. Yeah, why not? Of course they do. But it's not a great incentive when you want to then start selling what you really want to do is selling the books.
All right, my last question, kind of on the Facebook topic. Is there any warnings that you would give to people who are in KDP Select, and so they can really only target Amazon audience people? Is that a detriment with this, or any way around it?
You can use Amazon as a filter, so you could select like that. I typically don't bother. So I mean, some of my books are in Select and some aren't. But I don't tend to filter at that level, because I'm broadcasting these ads out at a fairly a good amount all the time, and I make it fairly obvious in the copy that these books are, if they're Amazon exclusive, that they are Amazon exclusive. So the link at the bottom will say Amazon. The copy will say available on Amazon or for your Kindle, or all that kind of stuff. So the language is there. You're not going to be getting clicks from people who've got Nooks or Kobo readers or that kind of stuff.
Okay, and I lied. I thought of one last question. We didn't really talk about how, I mean, of course you want to make money and sell books, but I know that you've mentioned in other interviews that this has helped your sales ranking on Amazon. Any thoughts on how it can be used to maybe get into some charts and things there?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I've got well, the launch that I supported with an ad for Headhunters got to 102 overall with no advertising apart from what I did. So it was no before Amazon kicked in. My ranking is like 10 or 11 in genres at the moment for action, adventure, and thrillers. And the box, and this is the cool thing in the UK, the box set, which is a £4.99, so $6.99 item, is hovering around 200 overall and has been for about 6 weeks. So that's at that level of visibility. It's top of all its genre rankings. It's getting a lot of organic traffic. And just it can build. So if you're getting more organic traffic, you'll get more sales. I can supplement that with more ads, push it further up. So my aim is I'm trying to get into the top 100, and we'll see how it does from there. But it's definitely doable.
All right, sounds great. I've got some ideas. I'm looking forward to playing around with this a little more myself.
Cool.
Before we let you go, do you want to tell us about the kind of this course you're doing and anything you want to plug?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the course is we open it twice a year. So we opened it in June, and we had I think 450 indies came in. We're opening it on the 23rd of October. So yeah, second time, and it'll be the only other time it's open again this year. The best way to get involved is to sign up at selfpublishingformula.com, and people will get those. We're giving away quite a lot right now, so the free videos, as I mentioned before, are enough to definitely get started with advertising. I'm doing weekly income reports, so just looking into the sales that are specifically tied to my advertising, and I'm giving away or giving my thoughts as to tips and things like that that are leading to better performance. So that desktop only as opposed to mobile tip, that's something that I'm looking at the moment. We have a series of emails on ad theory, which images to use, where to get them, video ads, that kind of stuff. And we do Periscope Hangouts on Friday night, so kind of a live Q&A that people can get into. And there's a closed Facebook group as well, so kind of a secret Facebook group with which is kind of it's slightly bigger than just Facebook now. We're talking about marketing generally, and Instagram and Twitter and all these other platforms. So that's pretty buzzing community as well right now. So yeah, people can get in. They just need to sign up at selfpublishingformula.com.
Okay, and you mentioned kind of some genres seem to, like the erotica author who made 18,000. Is it pretty good for all genres, or are there some that it works better for than others?
I'd say that it's potentially will work for everyone, but at different levels. So romance does very well. Not surprisingly, voracious readers are always looking for ways to get their new books. So I'd say they probably perform the best. And thrillers, the kind of stuff that I write, works pretty well. Erotica works well. YA is a bit more of a challenge because Facebook maybe not the platform that young kids are on these days. Maybe people like us, as opposed to the generation beneath us. Yeah, but even with that, I mean, I did some work with Brian Cohen from the Selma Book Show, who had his Ted Saved the World series, and we took that and really worked an ad and his Amazon page until we got it into a state where he was making money on those ads, and that was tricky. It was more difficult than other authors I've worked with, but we got there in the end. So if people are prepared to work hard and invest a bit of money, then I think it could probably work for most people.
Right, it's definitely not a set it and forget it kind of thing. You really need to pay attention and not spend more than you're making, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. When I check my numbers every day, it takes me about 20 minutes. I do it just after lunch every day, just to make sure that everything is working as it should. And I mean, if things aren't working, it really is as simple as just clicking a slider to turn an ad off. Facebook is effective at taking your money, but it's also pretty easy to stop it doing that. So yeah, it's as long as you're careful, it's not a big deal.
All right, great. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about, or books people should check out?
Well, my books, if people are interested in thrillers, then you can go to markjdawson.com. That's where you'll find my mailing list, sign up, and all that kind of stuff. But apart from that, no, it's a pleasure to meet you all, and lovely to talk.
All right, well, thank you for the awesome information. And anybody listening to this, I'll have it up in the show notes, all the links we've mentioned today, marketingsff.com, and this is episode 48.
All right, Mark, thanks for all the info, man.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yep. So long.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Okay, guys. Bye-bye.